The Spiel Canal, yet another gaming channel with no budget for animation or even a catchy tune.
I fancy doing a skills video, so here's part 1. This covers agility to cunning in alphabetical order. Part 2 will cover the other 4 main skills, and part 3 will cover the gang specific skills. Sit back, enjoy. Agility. Number 1, catfall. When this fighter falls or jumps down from a ledge, they count the vertical distance moved as being half of what it actually is, rounded up. So usually you can jump down up to 2 inches and you take an unmodified initiative check, and for each additional 2 inches it's -1 to that check, making it harder to pass, obviously. If you pass, great, you jumped and landed like a pro.
Woo! Superhero landing!
If you fail, you fall, you are pinned, and if the fall is greater than 2 inches, because you round up, there's a potential to take an injury, the strength of the hit increasing the further you fall. This skill, when you fall or jump, you halve the distance. No chance of an injury if you fall up to 5 inches, and after that it scales up slower. And unless it's a big fall with serious injuries or it takes you out of action, then you can take an additional unmodified initiative check, and if you pass, you land on your feet. It's a very situational skill where you're always travelling down. It's not a terrible skill to roll and can be really useful on Sector Mechanicus, but on Zone Metalis you might as well just take homeopathic medicine. Number 2, clamber. In Necromunda you can climb pretty much any vertical surface as long as you can reach the top in your activation. If there isn't a ladder, the vertical distance doubles, so a 2-inch climb counts as a 4-inch climb or 4-inch movement. Clamber disregards that, as if you're a champion climber, like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 2. All climbing distances count as being on a ladder. Similar to catfall, it's a very situational skill, not really one I value in my opinion, and certainly not with Zone Mortalis. Number 3, dodge. If this fighter suffers a wound from a ranged or close combat attack, roll a d6. On a 6, the attack is dodged and has no further effect. Otherwise, continue to make a save or resolve the wound as normal. So it's an invul on each wound, ranged or melee. Nice. If it's a blast, you can still use it, but it just moves you 2 inches. So if a blast hits you dead center, you can't escape. But still, not a bad skill. Extra little chance to avoid wounds. But if you're still hit, so rules as written, you're still pinned. So maybe it shouldn't be called dodge. Maybe call it low kinetic impact. Doesn't really roll off the tongue as well. Number 4, mighty leap. When measuring the distance of a gap this fighter wishes to leap across, ignore the first 2 inches of the distance. So normally if you want to move over a gap, if it's just the width of your base, you can just move over it. If it's bigger than your base, you have to take an initiative check, and if you fail, you fall. With this skill, it's not your base, it's up to 2 inches that you can just move across. If it's further than 2 inches, you still have to take that initiative check. You always need to have enough movement that you can reach the other side, so no crazy leaps here, unless you're caught. Number 5, spring up. If this fighter is pinned when they are activated, make an initiative check for them. If the check is passed, the fighter may make a stand-up action for free. If the check is failed, the fighter may still stand up, but it costs 1 action as usual. In my opinion, this is a great skill. Free standing up. Lets you charge still if you want, or make a move and fire, or aim and fire. Lets you make use of diving behind cover to make yourself untargetable, and then you can get up like nothing happened. This really opens up your movement and tactical options. To me, it's on par with Nerves of Steel. Nerves of Steel obviously lets you ignore being pinned, but with this, because of the tactics it opens up and the ability for you to make better use of cover, I value it a little bit more. Number 6, sprint. If you're performing 2 movement actions, sometimes people call it double move, the second move is worth double your movement value. So an Escher with a 5-inch move, make your basic move 5 inches, then they make a move again, blammo, you get to move an additional 10 inches as you've built up so much momentum, you slick bastard. Movement is king in this game, and 15 inches is nothing to sniff at, even if someone's sexting. Brawn. Ball charge. When the fighter makes close combat attacks as part of a charge action, any weapons with the melee trait, they also gain the knockback trait and are resolved at +1 strength. So this big old hammer, usually strength user +1, on the charge it's strength user +2 and has knockback. So if you hit but don't take them out, chances are you smack them backwards and deny the reaction attack at least. Solid pick if you have melee weapons, and I'm sure there's times when you'll get a second charge in on your next go. That would make for a good tale. Number 2, bulging biceps. This fighter may wield an unwieldy weapon in one hand rather than the usual 2, but it doesn't increase weapon slots. So when is this useful? I guess if you took an unwieldy melee weapon, you could also carry a pistol into the fight to get an additional attack. If you're ranged, it doesn't really help. Maybe a house rule that if you have this skill, you can twin guns blaze any guns that you carry. Just a thought. Number 3, Crushing Blow. Before rolling to hit for the fighter's close combat attacks, the controlling player can nominate one dice to make a Crushing Blow. This cannot be a dice that is rolling for a weapon with the pistol trait. If the dice hits, the attack strength and damage are increased by 1. So no extra attacks, but can have +1 strength and damage. Not terrible for the right weapon and fighter. Number 4, Headbutt. If engaged in melee, you gain new action, Headbutt. It's a basic action. Pick someone you're engaged with, roll 2d6. If one of the rolls are equal or greater than the target's toughness, you hit them with the ganger's strength +2 and it's 2 damage. Sounds good, right? Wrong. If both rolls are lower than the toughness, you take a hit equal to your strength. So not so hard, but why risk it? You can't use it on charge either, so it's either a reaction attack or during your activation if you're already engaged. And let me reiterate, you can damage yourself. Number 5, Hurl. Another one that gives you a basic action. Hurl lets you pick an enemy fighter that you're engaged with and in base contact with, or someone who's seriously injured and within 1 inch of this fighter. The fighter, your target, has to make an initiative check. If they fail, you hurl them. You can move the enemy D3 in a direction of your choice. If they're standing, they become prone and pinned after moving. If they come into contact with a standing fighter or terrain, then they suffer a strength 3, damage 1 hit. Same as the other fighter if you throw them into one of those. So it's similar to the knockback trait, but instead of 1 inch it's D3 and you choose the direction. Throwing someone off a walkway sounds fun, but if you don't have something to throw them against or off, you don't damage them, just disengage and they're pinned. And if you're near them and they're seriously injured, why not just coup de grace? Well, at least this skill doesn't damage you, I suppose. Number 6, Iron Jaw. This fighter's toughness is treated as being too high than normal when another fighter makes unarmed attacks against them in close combat. Why is someone making unarmed attacks?
Where's your tool? What fucking tool?
I mean, I guess it happens, but why are you skilling for this? Why are you skilling for someone's unarmed attacks? I mean, I suppose it would defend you against headbutt. Combat. Number 1, Combat Master. The fighter never suffers penalties to their hit rolls for interference and can always grant assists, regardless of how many enemy fighters they are engaged with. Juicy if you're charging in like a madman, or if there's just a bundle going on. Can be handy if you're an up close and personal kind of hive scummer, and it's a good counter to tar pit in a melee fighter, which is the tactic where you throw cheaper gangers at a good melee fighter to reduce their ability to be able to hit people. I think it's not too bad a skill. Number 2, Counter Attack. When this fighter makes reaction attacks in close combat, they roll 1 additional attack dice for each of the attacker's attacks that failed to hit, so whether they missed or were parried or whatever happened. Not so bad if you're likely to survive a charge, nice boost to the reaction, but it is only for failed to hit attacks, not failed to wound, which is a bit of a shame. Number 3, Disarm. Any weapons with the melee trait used by the fighter also gain the Disarm trait. If a weapon already has this trait, then the target will be disarmed on a natural roll of a 5 or 6 rather than just the usual 6. So proccing on 6 abilities, they're quite fun, but they're not something to rely on. But going from proccing on 6, so a 1 in 6 chance, to a 5 or 6 or 1 in 3 chance, that's very tempting if you've got a weapon with Disarm. If you don't have a Disarm weapon, it's not my favourite, but it's certainly worthwhile thinking about it if you do have one, or buying a weapon that has Disarm. Number 4, Parry. Parry lets you force an enemy who makes successful melee hits to re-roll it, with some exceptions. This skill gives you that ability regardless of the weapon, and it wouldn't have those restrictions either. And if you do have parry, it stacks. This is a good trait. Number 5, Rain of Blows. This fighter treats the fight action as a simple rather than a basic. In other words, the fighter may make 2 fight actions when activated. The fast shot of melee. No good on a charge, but if you're engaged in melee when activating, this gives you 2 goes. Bonus points. You give that fighter a versatile weapon, a shock whip with Rain of Blows, Rain of Death. They wouldn't even get the reaction to get to them. They can stand within their versatile range and just keep whipping them. Brilliant. Number 6, Step Aside. If the fighter is hit in close combat, the fighter can attempt to step aside and make an initiative check for them. If the check is passed, the attack misses. This skill can only be used once per enemy in each round of close combat. So Ganger A hits me with an attack. I try step aside, I pass my initiative check, his attack misses. If he has more than 1 attack die, maybe he's got a melee and pistol weapon combo. I can only step aside 1 of the hits. Does add to survivability against some gangers, but I wouldn't rely on it against a corpse grinder or a charging Goliath. Cunning. Number 1, Backstab. Any weapon used by this fighter with the melee trait also gains the Backstab trait. If they already have this trait, add 2 to the attack strength rather than the usual 1 when this trait is used. Backstab's nice little trait gives you +1 strength if you attack outside the vision arc of your enemy, If you have a knife, which most likely has the backstab trait, and you give them this, it's a nice little perk. Obviously it can be tough to get the drop on someone unless they're already engaged. Number 2, Escape Artist. When this fighter makes a retreat action, which is a basic action, add 2 to the result of their initiative check. The natural 1 still fails. Additionally, if they're captured at the end of the battle, blah 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 blah. First part of this is okay, handy for mid-range initiative gangs, but how often do people retreat? Not saying it doesn't happen, just not so often. Second part is okay. I don't tend to pick skills based on an unfortunate series of events, but I guess if I was in a campaign and I had a ganger whose value is going up and up and up, then it would help make them a little bit safer. Number 3, Evade. If an enemy targets this fighter with a ranged attack and this fighter is standing and active and not in partial cover or full cover, there's an additional -1 modifier to the hit roll or -2 modifier if the attack is at long range. So a partial or full cover roll even if they're not in cover, but it doesn't stack with cover. So it can be handy if you're trying to close space and there isn't barricades to assist, but maybe build your board better. Put the scatter out with this plan in mind, or just take the next skill. Number 4, Infiltrate. If this fighter should be set up at the start of the battle, they may instead be placed to one side, then immediately before the start of the first round, their controlling player may set them up anywhere on the battlefield that is not visible to an enemy fighter and not within 6 inches of them. I love this skill, I don't get to use it very often though. Great way to sow discord, handy-on units which can cause havoc, and it splits your opponent's forces. It can be tough if the enemy is deployed effectively, but it's still fun using Infiltrate and a template weapon. Dilac love this, especially with web guns. Number 5, Lilo. While this fighter is prone, enemy fighters cannot target them with a ranged attack unless they are within the attacking weapon's short range. Weapons that do not have a short range are unaffected by this rule. The Play Dead skill. If you ever wanted to be a snake pretending it's dead to avoid an eagle, this is your skill. How about, and I'm just spitballing here, you go to ground behind some cover so you can't be shot at. Both of these tactics don't avoid template weapons, but one doesn't cost you a skill, so swings and roundabouts. Number 6, Overwatch. If this fighter is standing and active and has a ready marker on them, they can interrupt a visible enemy's actions as soon as it is declared but before it's carried out. This fighter loses their ready marker, then immediately makes a shot action targeting the enemy fighter whose action they have interrupted. If the enemy is pinned or seriously injured as a result, their activation ends immediately and their actions are not made. This is another excellent skill. Putting this on someone with a template like grenades is dirty. I like putting this on a sniper when I'm having a crappy day and I want to take it out on someone else. You can use this on the enemy's first or second action as long as they are visible. Well, thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've just found the channel, please like and subscribe. It helps me immensely. As I mentioned previously, I am going to run a competition. The choice of prizes is either Escher Gang, still on sprue, which came with the Hive War box set, or a set of unopened Cawdor Dice from the gangs of the Under days, not the new set that came out of House of Faith. And I'll let the winner choose, because why not? So if you use one of my social media links below, Instagram and Twitter, either or, if you follow me on that and share one of my videos and tag me in it, I'll consider that an entry into the competition. I will keep the competition open until I publish the part 2 video, and then I will contact the winner after that. I don't know why I say on the end of my videos what I'm going to make next, because I never seem to stick to that. So at some point I will do my next song video. I don't know when that will be. Additionally, my next video will be about a technical schematic for the Golden Throne. Why not? Thank you for everybody who has subscribed. Please like, share, spread the love and the warm embrace of the Four-Armed Emperor. He protects all, especially loved ones. His love is eternal. Thank you.